The following is a special presentation of Tony Curry Radio.
One of our favorite shows here on TKR, and of course, wherever you get your podcast, and of course, right here on the YouTube channel, Tony Curry YouTube. He's Mark Ingham on the left-hand side. I'm Tony Curry. This is the UAB Director's Chair. We talk about all things UAB, and we talk about college sports in general as well. Mark, what is going on? A huge weekend this weekend, but how you doing, brother? Everything good?
Yeah, everything's great here, man. I'm excellent. Thank you. Yeah, homecoming week, which, I got to tell you, at UAB, before I got here, I would not have any reason to know this one way or the other, but UAB does a fantastic job with homecoming, particularly for a school that's as young as it is. And, there's been events all week, the Gurney Derby, which is really unique and fun, which we did on Wednesday, and Friday, homecoming parade, which is super well attended. Like, there are families from like Glen Iris and Titusville around that come in for the parade, and you see a lot of faculty and staff with their children. Like, it's packed. It's like a very full event. A lot of floats and things. All the Greeks do floats, and a lot of the other organizations do floats and cars and whatever that enter into the parade. But it's very well attended by people around Birmingham, so it's a lot of fun. And then, of course, typically, as you know, the football game, which is Saturday at 2:00. So it's exciting, and always has a lot of interest.
Got the FAU game going on, like you said, for homecoming at 2:00. Protect us. Make sure you get down there and check it out. UABsports.com. UABsports.com. You get your tickets through the site. And then, of course, I do want to look forward a little bit. You've got a huge Veterans Day shindig against the Navy. How special is that going on the following week?
Yeah, very cool. We'll play, and we'll talk about it next week, I know, but we play up at Navy next week, which happens to also be on Veterans Day, which is really exciting. And I've been to a couple of Army-Navy games, and then I've been to 2 games at Navy, at home, Navy home games, and they have as much pageantry around Navy home games as really anybody. And I can only imagine. I've never been to a Veterans Day game, but I can only imagine that will be enhanced for Veterans Day. So that's really exciting for us. And as you know, Tony, Amy and I have 4 kids, and our oldest is a senior at the Naval Academy. So that'll be a ton of fun. And we've really grown to kind of fall in love with Annapolis, Maryland, which is a really special place and a special town. And their campus is super cool. And, you just can't help but admire all those kids for what they do and what they stand for. And all the hard work that they put in. It's a unique experience, to say the least. And we're looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic. Combined 41-15. That is the record of the teams that UAB has played so far in college football this season. 2-6. I know, a disappointment for UAB fans. We got 4 more games to go. We went out. We'll go to a bowl game. But talk about that a little bit. And listen, I remember you talking about the schedule prior, of course, the first season in the AAC, and just how difficult it was going to be. But even then, I didn't think you thought it was going to be a 41-15. Thank goodness 12-19 are the remaining scheduled games. So perhaps we can tick off some wins here. But it's been a hell of a season, man.
Yeah, I mean, so the games that let me say that I schedule are the non-conference games. So North Carolina A&T, Louisiana Lafayette, Georgia Southern, and Georgia. We schedule those. The American Conference schedules the others. When we schedule Georgia Southern, well, first of all, Clay Helton wasn't there. I'm not sure the person before Clay Helton was there. Billy Napier had just gotten to Louisiana Lafayette and didn't do what he did, and then moved to Florida and all that. And Georgia was Georgia, but they weren't quite what Georgia is today. But anyway, those are the ones we handle. And so I was looking at Florida Atlantic. So Florida Atlantic, who we play Saturday for homecoming, they're 3-1 in the league right now, right? And you say, okay, who have they played? Well, they lost to San Antonio. We also lost to San Antonio. I would say our game was a lot closer than theirs. I'm not sure they were ever in that game, but I'm not trying to beat up on Florida Atlantic, because I think San Antonio is really good.
Yeah.
But we drew Memphis and Tulane. They drew Tulsa and Charlotte. And
Mhm.
so those two, by comparison, are not the same two. And then we both played South Florida. So we've both played and beaten South Florida, and then we've both played and lost to San Antonio. But then we drew Memphis and Tulane, and they drew Tulsa and
Charlotte.
Charlotte.
Yep.
Tulsa this past week, bless their hearts, played SMU, who I think is the best team in the league. Hard to say. In my opinion, it's Tulsa. In my opinion, SMU is number one. And then I actually think San Antonio is the next best team, having played Tulane and Memphis, who are also very good. But my opinion is I think San Antonio is better than both of them. But anyway, SMU was up like, and look, man, I'm sure I'm going to be wrong when I say this, but I think the score was like 52-3 at the half.
It was. It was.
Is that what it was? Okay.
Yep.
So SMU, I noticed, played like 3 or 4 different quarterbacks. They pulled their starters out with like 5 minutes to go in the second quarter.
Yeah.
And so so obviously Tulsa's having a tough year. So it's hard to know, it's hard to tell what is Florida Atlantic, right? It's like any of us until you kind of get into it and start playing everybody and go, okay, now I know who they are and like how good are we or how good are they? It's hard to know until you really lock horns with them or that you both play a common opponent to have a feel. And so their win over South Florida was almost identical to ours. They what you might appear, it says you might think that they played better defensively. But we cleared the bench the entire fourth quarter. I mean, we were up by, I think it was 4 touchdowns and finished up by 2 touchdowns. I think we gave up 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, which had we left our people in, I'm confident that would not happen. So I would just say I think we both scored the same number of points. We gave up more, but there's a little bit of an asterisk there. I'm not certain that that's really very different. So I think the game against Florida Atlantic could be a really good football game. And, two fairly evenly matched teams or similar teams. So obviously, pulling for the Blazers here, but I think it's going to be a great football game.
Weather's going to be fantastic. Again, 2:00 for homecoming this weekend. Check out all the homecoming festivities. It should be a large time. UABsports.com. Check out the website. Basketball. Let's get into it, man. I love me some hoops. Probably one of my favorite sports, if not my favorite sport. Go ahead.
Let me tell you this one other thing about homecoming, and then we go right to basketball.
Yeah.
The other great thing about this game, you mentioned weather, homecoming, but this is always really important for us, is we are well in front of the Alabama LSU game. So that's another thing for anybody that's interested, as a lot of people are. I mean, look, I love college football. I like to see that game, right? But you'll be able to come to the UAB game and get home to see that game without any trouble, which I think is also really positive for us and for, just college football fans, and we're running a special tomorrow, 4 tickets and a parking pass for $60. So
okay, good.
For your family, if you haven't been to Protective Stadium, man, this is a great opportunity to get down there. Good weather, affordable price, should make it really easy. So anyway, back to hoops.
Fantastic. Yeah, I love me some hoops, and they're taking on Bradley, of course, coming up this Monday for the first game of the season. And you had talked to me prior to doing the show about just how big this matchup is against Bradley. It's going to be a monster game coming up, and what a great first game for the UAB Blazers.
Yeah, a real test, Tony. If you don't know it, or I know Andy has put this out on social media. So if you missed it, Bradley and UAB that on day one of college basketball is the only game other than I think there's like a prearranged matchup in like I think Las Vegas, like with some sort of tournament kind of thing, but of just like home and home type contests. It is the only game with 2 teams who each won more than 25 games last year.
I mean,
that? Yeah, for anybody that's looking at that going, oh, Bradley, hey man, they are really good. They've got a great basketball history, and just like we do. And I think it's going to be a very tough game. I mean, to draw game 1. And so don't sleep on Bradley fans. Please be there to support the team. If you've got tickets, be there. And if you don't have tickets, get them now, because it's going to be a really good basketball game.
I'm looking forward to seeing, and I know that Andy Kennedy is a great coach. He got the extension, and I think he's a great fit there, obviously, because he played there. But I'm really interested to see what he does with these youngsters that he's got coming into this crew. And I know that he's a very positive guy. He's an eternal optimist, and he always talks about how good his teams are going to be. But give me an idea of what you expect from Andy Kennedy this year. You're going to find out just how good of a coach he is, because they got a lot of new pieces.
Well, I think he's a great coach too, and I don't need this year to prove it. I think, in Andy's first 3 years, I mean, he's won almost more games than anybody in the country in that same time frame. So he's doing an outstanding job. But to your point, just like football and all of our other sports, you got a new league, you got a totally new set of coaches and styles that you got to prepare for, and new arenas that we haven't been to or gotten used to yet with our team. And yeah, 9 new players, which we also had 9 new players last year, which is just unique in the modern era of sports, but especially basketball. They're great looking. I mean, I think he would tell you that we're longer, and what that means is, arms longer, legs longer, a little bit more height or length, as some coaches would call it, which for Andy's style, he loves, and I love watching it too. He loves to press. He loves to throw that full court press on you and back it off, and half court and back it off, and full court, and, kind of keep you on your toes. And so it's most effective. I mean, I know this is kind of an obvious statement, but like, taller, longer people can like guard more area. And so that's going to, you assume, be more effective. It really plays to his, what he wants to do, which is run, and press, and create turnovers and steals and dunks and fast layups and that kind of thing, which is a ton of fun to watch. So I'm excited about that. And he's got, some really good guys. And it's just when you have that many, again, true for every sport, just trying to get everybody. This is what the transfer portal has done. Gosh, I don't want to get too deep here, Tony, but what the transfer portal has done is like when I played, I could count on sophomores, juniors, and seniors that were older than me, kind of showing me the ropes, like a million little bitty things that, the coaches were teaching the plays and scheme, while the older guys were like, hey man, when you go to that meeting, you need to be dressed and ready for this. You need to, like, we wear our pants to the meeting. Yeah, you need to have your pants on and be taped and ready when you go to, oh, okay. Just like little stuff. There's just like all these little bitty things. Hey, when we travel, we wear ties. Yeah, and don't come in there with your knot sideways. You better make sure that thing's right. Stuff like that. Now with the transfer portal, like, you got to retrain all of it every single year. So this is not a UAB problem. This is everybody's dealing with this problem. Like, so when we talk about kind of a team culture conversation, which is a very popular thing to talk about. Ooh, they have a good team culture. Ooh, their team culture is toxic. I don't even know what that means anymore. I mean, but you're trying to retrain and reteach everything. What do we wear? What time? Don't be late. Don't be late for this. When he uses that term, that's a term that this coach likes, and what he means is this. Like, I never heard that word before. Yeah, okay, here's what he's talking about. So every one of our teams, again, across the country, is having to deal with that. And so that, when you ask the question about the challenge, it's like there's a lot of challenge beyond just X's and O's in, football or soccer or baseball, whatever. It's not just blocking and tackling, man. It is really like every nuance of the program that is unique to the coach. That is the way that coach likes it. And you can fill in the blank on the it. What is the it? It's like 1,000 things. So how do they like that? And so that's really the challenge, is trying to get all these new guys, particularly if they came to you from the transfer portal. They not only have what they remember from their high school days, but then they got kind of trained to do a certain thing a certain way at another university that might be identical or completely different than the way we do it. And so, you're really trying to teach a lot more than just, in this case, basketball.
We always talk about identity, and we talk about leadership and how important those two things are to a basketball team. And of course, the likes of Jelly and Jamison, those guys moved on, of course, to the NBA. Talk about Eric Gaines a little bit. This is a kid that can jump out of the gym, has made some unbelievable. If you've never gotten a chance to get to Bartow and see Gaines play, it's just an amazing thing. And when he's got an open floor, and he's just unbelievable. But he is young, and I've always kind of felt like watching him on the floor, because I don't think that he was the leader, because there were some of the other leaders on the floor at the same time, that he could be that next guy. Could you talk a little bit about how important he is to the success of the UAB Blazers, and what this kid can do? Because he's amazing.
He's a super athlete. And Andy said when we signed him that he said, hey, look, we've had a lot of great players here. He goes, and I don't want to get ahead of myself, but Eric Gaines could by the time he leaves here, we may all consider him the best athlete we've ever had. And I said, oh, yeah, it's a pretty big statement. But like the other night, and I know it's an exhibition game, but it's still 5-on-5 basketball with other people that practice, and they're not bad at basketball. They just, they're at a lower, Division II level. So he's up top, he's on defense. Their point guard, crosses over half court, and he goes to make a kind of an overhead pass over Eric to another one of his teammates. Eric is able to react so quickly. He jumps straight up in the air. And he blocks the pass. The pass comes down kind of right in front of Eric, or I can't remember if it bounced or I don't think he caught it. He tips it kind of to himself and goes straight down and does I don't remember, some windmill crazy dunk or whatever. And it's not just the dunk. To me, it's about the reaction on the pass to get up and not just touch the ball, but to be able to get up and elevate in a way to tip it to himself.
Mm-hmm.
It was all of that, and get around that guy, and then go, score. But I thought I was more impressed with the defensive piece of that than the offensive, and the offensive was super impressive. And so here's what I thought I saw in Eric last year is early on. I think Eric was trying a little too hard to show everybody how athletic he was. And, he'd come down the lane and he'd go up and everybody would kind of go, oh, because he would just elevate so quickly and above everybody. And you're like, oh my gosh. And then he would lose the ball.
Yeah.
It would come out of his hand or whatever. And you're like, that's a turnover, man. And you could see the promise, right? Well, I thought what he did really, really well was really protect the ball. By the time he got to the end of the season, his turnovers, I don't know the numbers, and Andy'd be able to rattle right off the top. It's almost like he went from 5 turnovers a game to 2 or something like that. And you're trying to go to 0, but he really seemed to pay very close attention to his coaching, really take it to heart, and focus on protecting the ball, and that you'd rather take a bad shot than to go up for some dunk and lose it, or to be so cool and loose with the ball that they pick your pocket. Like, you'd almost rather do this and shoot it towards the rim.
Yeah.
Because somebody, maybe it'll hit the rim, or somebody else would, get the rebound. That would be better than having your sort of your pocket picked up top because you were dribbling behind your back or something, and or one hand passing to somebody and make a bad pass. But he's got great vision on the court. Again, I guess it's probably coded as a turnover. He made what could have been an electric pass, one hand, straight down the lane, bounce pass between a couple of people. And it's just the problem when you do that, you're usually passing to a taller guy, which he is, and the taller guy is kind of looking up for a lob or a pass up here where I can catch it and, lay it in. And, it's kind of low. It's just hard for a guy like that to react. But Eric is an exciting player, and we've got a few other guys that you don't know yet that you're going to come to Bartow and go, okay, they are also.
He's going to have a lot of eyeballs on him on Monday for sure. He's an exciting player to watch. And again, Bradley going on. It's going to be unbelievable. Bartow Arena. Can't believe basketball season starts. What a great time of the year. I'm so excited about that. Hey, listen, I want to get back to college football real quick. And I excuse me for missing this when we were talking about college football before, but we cannot talk enough about college football. Jacob Zedon is going to be back this weekend after a concussion protocol. We saw a couple of interesting stories in the National Football League over the last couple of weeks, including Deshaun Watson, who, of course, went through concussion protocol with the Cleveland Browns. He was cleared to play, but did not play that following week because the coach said he is our franchise guy. We must protect him, despite the fact that he was cleared. Brock Purdy, the San Francisco 49ers, also went through concussion protocol a week before he played the Cincinnati Bengals. He was cleared on Friday, ended up playing in that football game, and of course the Bengals got the best of him. It was the first time in over a year that a guy actually had a concussion protocol the week before and actually played that following game.
Yeah.
Can you talk about concussion protocol, why coaches would keep a player out if in fact he is past concussion protocol and he is eligible to play? Why would they hold that out? Is that a gray area that we're looking at? Can you just talk a little bit about that? Because I know when Jacob went out a couple of weeks ago, we didn't know about it until game time that he wasn't going to play. And of course, Harrison Barker played some football that particular weekend. That was exciting to watch. But can you talk a little bit about concussion protocol and how that works in college?
Yeah, look, I don't want to talk about the Niners or the Browns and what led to that decision because I don't know any more than you know.
Yeah.
But I'll say this, just like generally speaking, is you can pass the protocol and still not feel well.
Yeah.
And you could pass the protocol and maybe there's something else that's bothering you that they have not released or discussed, or it may not be an injury per se, but you got this ankle thing that's nagging at you. And you just would rather, hey, if I feel like if I could risk a lot more here. So there could be all sorts of reasons why they don't play. Jacob could have played against Memphis, and Trent Dilfer said to me 3 days before the game, he said, look, I don't want to risk this young man's life and career over a game. And he said, I know as much as anybody that we all want to win and I want to win. And people say, I need a win or we need a win or whatever. And he goes, and I want those things, but I don't want those things more than I want to make sure he's healthy. And I totally respect that. Like,
Sure.
What am I supposed to say to that? I mean, I can't do anything but love that, right? Now, did it make it harder for us to win? It absolutely did. But I just really respect that decision. And so I'm not saying that San Francisco it could be that Cleveland was the exact same situation. Again, I don't know. And I'm not suggesting that San Francisco was less concerned about Brock's health, but there's a process where you clear hurdle number 1, and then you have to wait a day for number 2. And if you clear 2, you wait a day for 3. And that's kind of the way it goes. There's I think a 5-step process there on that protocol that's all handled not by the coaches, but or even the trainers, but by your team doctor. So You're not in a situation where the person making that decision even reports to the athletic department in any way. That way you don't have a situation where the coach, it's all by design so that the coach can't say, well, you may not be our doctor next year. You think, well, they wouldn't say that. They might, we're in a situation where you got a medical doctor, a trained physician who's evaluating them and helps make that decision. But they talked about it in the Niners game because I remember watching it where they were saying how quickly Brock came back. And again, that's what makes concussions so, I'm going to say, weird.
Yeah.
If I break my arm is broken. You can see it on the MRI. You can see it, the X-ray, it's broken.
Yeah.
Concussions, man, are really hard. They're just hard. And how, you and I could hit our head the same exact way, the same force, and have a completely different. You could be good.
Do you remember 15, 20 years ago, there used to be 3 different types of concussions? You got a concussion, you were a 1 or 2 or a 3. That was it. And I'm going to make this analogy, and I can say this because I have a child who's on the autism spectrum. It's a lot like autism. Just because you're on the spectrum, because you have a concussion, every concussion is different to that particular individual. And the characteristics of that, it can last for a long period of time. You could be cleared for concussion and still have some of the symptoms of it. But you're right. It is so specific to that individual.
Well, I'm on the football competition committee for the NCAA, and it's almost the only thing we talk about.
Yeah.
When we talk about rules, we almost only talk about the targeting rule and how can we make it better? Is it effective? Our concussion numbers have dropped dramatically since the start of the targeting rule. And I like the targeting rule. I don't love ejections. I wish there was a way to get away from ejections. We did soften that a little bit this year, that you're not automatically out of the next game, which I think is just incredibly, I just think it's an over penalty to me.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot of ideas. The problem is, but people say, yeah, but Mark, since we implemented this, look at what our concussion numbers have started to drop, which is a fact. My argument is, well, helmet technology is better. Yes, of course, the targeting rule. I think the coaches teach tackling better. As well. There's just a lot of turf technology is better. So there's just a lot of things that you could attribute that to beyond just the targeting rule. But the targeting rules made a big difference. And football's not number 1 in concussions. It's just the one because it's so popular, it gets talked about. I mean, ice hockey and wrestling and soccer, is worse for concussions because there's no headgear.
Yeah.
In soccer. And so it's a point of emphasis amongst all officials and coaches. You talk about 15 years ago, and I'm going to go farther back. I remember being at practice in college, and we had this new linebacker. He was a junior college transfer named Craig King. Craig wore number 44, and we had a big dude, 47, Tyrone Hines. Tyrone was like 6'4", okay, played middle linebacker. And we got this guy comes in, and he's like 5'11". And I'm like, man, who is this guy? Now, he was muscular, but I was like, Craig King. So I go in at center. It's just during practice, during a team period, and they just kind of threw Craig in at middle linebacker, just pursuing play. We're just trying to get him involved. And I was in my mind, I was like, I'm going to bury this guy. I'm going to really welcome him to Tennessee football. And so I remember very, very well. Tall sweep to the left. There were my responsibility. He was the Mike linebacker. I was going to take a wide angle, cut him off, block this guy. I did all those things. And Tony, what I remember is when I engaged with him, the lights went out. He hit me right in the side of the head. And the next thing I remember is our trainer standing over me, looking down, going, hey,
yeah.
You all right? And I wake up looking at him doing that. And I kind of look around. I don't know how. I was blacked out. I don't know how long. I look around. They have moved the drill. Everybody is on the other end of the field. And that's what I finished practice. I didn't go in the training room. I stood up like that, and got a little water maybe. I mean, maybe. I don't even know if I got water. And hey, what's wrong with Ingram over there? Oh, he just got his bell rung. He's that was the thing. You guys got your bell rung.
Yeah.
And then, here, take some smelling salts. And we should know, And I'm not making that okay. I'm probably explaining.
I hear. Yeah.
The problems you see in me are probably this.
we won't hold it against you. I think we've all had a concussion at some point in our life. We just don't know when it happened. I know I have. UAB Director Sherry's Mark Ingram. He is the UAB Athletic Director, UABsports.com. Big ball game going this weekend, homecoming against FAU, and then basketball. Hoop starts on Monday against Bradley. Make sure you get your tickets for both those games. I mentioned we did not have an email before, but actually I just got one from Ed in Southside. He wants to know Mark's take on the tush push. I know this is big in the National Football League. Philadelphia, they had it lined up there at the goal line this past week and then handed it off for an easy touchdown by Swift around the left side. So they're utilizing that. A lot of people are talking about from a safety situation, they'll leave it in unless, of course, people start getting banged up. I haven't seen anyone get injured by it. You've probably seen more people getting injured by quarterback sneaks than you do by a tush push. And we haven't really seen it as relevant in college football as we have in pro football. But what's your thoughts on that particular play? As a football fan, I'm like, if you want to stop us, stop us. If our guys are stronger than yours, then knock it out. What's your thoughts on it, according to Ed?
Well, first of all, go Birds.
Yeah.
And secondly, it doesn't bother me. Yeah, stop it. You can't, what do you want? What are we talking about?
Yeah.
And not everybody is as good. Philadelphia has figured it out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how to do it, technique, strength, whatever. But you see there's other teams trying to do it. And they're not anywhere close to doing it effectively like Philadelphia. Philadelphia picks up not just a first down, but they usually get 3-4 yards. I mean, It's not just let's get a foot here. They really mash you, man. And some of it's their offensive line, some of it's their strong quarterback and the people behind him, whatever. But I've watched other teams try to do it and not do it nearly like they do it. But yeah, it doesn't bother me. I mean, I do wonder, or it makes you wonder, for those of us that love the history of the game, Yale used to do a thing back in the 1800s called the flying wedge, the flying V, and it was on kickoff returns. And they outlawed it because you basically sort of lock arms. And this is, leather helmets. And I don't even think they wore helmets. They might not have done leather helmets, but, and you could just sort of mow people down. And it was totally unfair. And people would start launching themselves over the thing. And there was a guy named Pudge Heffelfinger, William Walter Heffelfinger, nicknamed Pudge Heffelfinger, who played for Yale. He kind of changed that because he was about 6'3", and he was bigger than everybody else at that time. At that time, that was just like mammoth. And he would just go flying down on kickoff, man. And he would just launch himself and just dismantle the thing, and it became just like super dangerous. And so they outlawed it.
Yeah.
You can't do that anymore. And so I do wonder if that is a one day coming thing. Like, hey man, this is somehow unfair, but I hope not. Again, if you can stop it, man. Our 11 versus your 11. Let's play.
I'm listening to the radio yesterday, and actually we're running some commercials on Tony Curry Radio for this Talk Some Classic Rock, the important stuff here. And tickets went on sale this morning at 10 o'clock for a show coming up at the BJCC Concert Hall in April. Are you aware of this show?
Which one? Come on.
John Mellencamp.
The Coug.
I didn't even know the Coug was still out there. I knew he was still doing some shows. I know he's part of the Farm Aid thing that happened a few months ago, but I wanted to get you that's a guy that we did not mention. We've done a lot of classic rock on this particular show. I want to get Mark Ingram's thoughts on John Cougar Mellencamp. Do you like the guy? Obviously, he's a Hall of Famer. A show you'd want to see. It's at the BJCC Concert Hall, so I'm assuming it's I hope it's not an acoustic show because I want to see the band. But give me your thoughts on John Cougar Mellencamp.
I don't like him. I love him. He's awesome. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
I mean, look, I didn't know you were going to ask me this, but like, how many hits do you think that guy has? 25?
Exactly.
I mean, this is a 2.5, 3 hour show of just hits, not. Yep. If he wants, that's not one song will he play that you go, I don't know if I've heard that one. No.
Yeah.
It one after the next, after the next, after the next. I mean, and a guy who was relevant for a long, long time, I think, until he probably decided he was tired, Yeah. I don't know. I don't know all the reasons surrounding why he kind of stopped touring or putting music out, but I mean, he was still putting music out in the 90s and he was doing it in the 70s. That's a long time, man.
I think, I loved when he was more, and I hope I'm saying this right, more rock and roll. The Hurt So Good, maybe the Rain on the Sierra. And then it seemed like when he probably got into some more of the, not a country, but more of a fiddle kind of Cherry Bomb, Rudy Toot Toot, stuff like that. It didn't quite have the edge like I Need a Lover that I really enjoyed early in his career. And so I do remember, and I'll never forget this because back in our day, we used to have Top 40 radio, and hell, we used to be on AM. I mean, FM wasn't even really that big. And Hand to Hold On To was just a huge song, and it used to come on the radio at the same time every single morning, and it would be like the first song. And of course, in our bus, we had the bus driver who was smoking a cigarette. She had her own stereo in the bus. And it was the loudest stereo on any bus I'd ever had. And that song would come on every morning at about 7:23, and she would crank that thing up. And I remember her smoking cigarettes. She'd be shading trees, cutting corners and hitting poles. True story. And I had about a 45-minute bus ride. And I remember hearing that song every morning for about a year and a half. And so I do have fond memories of John Cougar Mellencamp. That'll be a show I definitely want to go to.
Yeah, I love all that. I love that, the memories that it brings back. You think about where were you when you heard Jack and Diane, or whatever. And, it just makes you think about some time in your life. And, you talk about his sort of music changing. There's a lot of people a lot of bands that have had great success that have been successful because they had the sense to evolve a little bit. I don't know about change, but diehard Metallica fans. I've heard Lars Ulrich talk about this and James Hetfield talk about this, that there's some of their diehard fans really did not like the Black Album because it wasn't like And Justice for All, but it just was, the songs were short enough to be played on the radio and were just mainstream enough to get played on the radio. They were just a little bit lighter than what they had been. And their answer was, people like, I love this quote. Lars Ulrich says, our fans say, you guys sold out. And he's like, yeah, we sell out every single night. Man, you play music because you love music. Yeah. These guys are also trying to operate a business, pay some bills, and, so look, give them all credit for being smart enough to go, hey, we can just continue to just kind of massage what we do and kind of keep the core of, our tone the same, but
I remember when ZZ Top, ZZ Top was that little band from Texas. They did blues music, and then they came out with Eliminator, and people were like, what is this?
Yeah, what is this?
We don't like this, and it was the biggest album they ever had, and probably one of the best albums they ever had. So
crushed it. Right.
Great stuff. Homecoming this weekend, basketball on Monday, UABsports.com. Check out the website. Mark, thank you so much. We'll catch up next week. Hopefully we'll get winners on both sides, okay?
Yeah, man. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, brother.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Curry Radio.